Ask your wife what animal you remind her of.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, everybody. What's up, everybody? And welcome to another episode of Standing Out. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Standing Out, a show about sales, marketing, and leadership. I'm Trey Griggs, your host. So glad that you are with us today on this Tuesday afternoon. Hope you're enjoying some of the early fall weather. Man, I don't know about you, but here in St. Louis, man, it feels like Halloween is right around the corner. Change of colors, cool, crisp mornings, and I'm sure some pumpkin spice lattes for my daughters and wife in the near future. It's coming, everybody. So hope you're doing well, and thanks for joining the show today. Hey, be sure to check us out at betaconsultinggroup.com. We're helping companies with their sales strategies. Everybody wants sales right now. Get a little outside help to accelerate your sales and shorten those sales cycles. Reach out to us at betaconsultinggroup.com. Click on that little button there that says schedule a call with yours truly, and we'd love to talk to you and help you get on the fast track to more sales. Today's show, we're going to have a great time. Can't wait to talk about what we're going to be doing here in a little bit. Before we do that, got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Sales-CRM. Josh Lyles, man, he's a good dude, building a CRM specifically for freight brokers by freight brokers. Most of those CRMs that you're using out there are not designed for your business in mind. So if you're a freight broker and you want a CRM that's going to be built for you and your workflows, make sure you reach out to sales-crm.com or Josh Lyles. Let them know you heard about it right here on Standing Out. Also, listen, we are just weeks away, 5-6 weeks away, something like that, from the next edition of the Broker Carrier Summit. This is the event for freight brokers and carriers to come together, meet one another, talk through industry challenges, and find like-minded partners. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be in Fort Worth, October 23 through 25 at the beautiful Worthington Renaissance Hotel. And we're going to have some phenomenal speakers there, a lot of networking opportunities, the best golf tournament in the industry, bar none. So make sure you go to brokercarriersummit.com and sign up for that today. Use the coupon code BETA, B-E-T-A, to get 10% off. We can't wait to see you there. If you do make it out to Fort Worth, make sure you come up and introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you in person if we haven't met before. And again, remember, this is huge. If you're a truckload carrier, find brokers who are going to help you grow. If you're a broker, find the carriers who are going to treat you right and make sure they take care of your freight and your customers' freight to make them happy. It's going to be a phenomenal event. Can't wait to see you guys down in Fort Worth. Speaking of the Broker Carrier Summit, today's guest is the visionary, the founder behind the entire event, the man, the myth, the legend. Please welcome to the show, the one and only Dan Lindsey.
Come on now.
What's up, brother?
Hello.
How are you, my friend?
I am doing well. How
I
are
gotta
you?
say, man, you have one of the best walk-up songs of everybody that I've had on the show. I love this song. I didn't even know about this song until you made it a walk-up song. I'm so out of the loop. It's
I stumbled on that song. It's an Australian indie blues band singing Southern blues.
Yeah,
So-
I've never heard of it before, but man, it hits. It's a banger, dude. Like it needs to be on the playlist. There's no doubt about that. Man, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Just cranking everything out here.
I know, man. I'm excited to have you on the show today because there's a lot to talk about with this. I mean, just think about the last 2-year journey that you've been on. First of all, you're a former Marine. Thank you for your service. I appreciate that. Coming out of that, you got into freight and you were part of a freight brokerage, Linkage Logistics, had that going. You were growing that. And then this crazy idea, man, of the Broker Carrier Summit came up. First of all, for our audience who hasn't heard the story, talk about how this idea really came into fruition with the one and only Robert Bain, the strongest man in logistics.
Yeah. So we're going to, in fact, next week, Bain and I are going to do a whole podcast recording of the origin story. We're going to put it up on the website once we get
Nice.
it. So hopefully we'll be able to do it in a cigar bar here locally. But
You should.
We'll see. We should.
100%. And I imagine it might have a little, the tails might get a little bit longer in this story, I imagine. Than
they may meander. They may wander into unknown territory. We will see. I'm trying to find a cigar bar open at 10 a.m. though, and that's a daunting task. So,
you may have to stay there all night and just do it at the very end before they close. That's what you might have to do.
Yeah, we could do that too. So, but yeah, so the origin story of the summit. So crazy idea. I've been in freight brokerage since 2013, been in logistics in different capacities since 2000. And one of the consistent themes that I saw, and everybody sees it, is the tense relationship between the intermediary, the broker, and the trucking company. We can get into who's stealing money from who's taking whose business, and whatever. We can do that all day long. But I finally just got tired of hearing about people complaining about the industry and not doing anything about it. So what was it? It was the TIA convention in 21. It was the first year that we started having conventions again after
San Diego, I believe, wasn't it?
It was San Diego, yeah. And it was at the San Diego Whiskey House, which you should sponsor this show, San Diego Whiskey House, because you're gonna get a shout out.
Come on.
The best whiskey bar that I have been to in a very, very long time. It has a wall of whiskey. It's fantastic. So we were sitting there just talking about challenges in the industry, why the market is the way it is, why brokers suck, why carriers suck, how we can not suck as bad. And I just threw out the idea, and he's feeding me, glasses at this point.
Robert Bain is.
Robert Bain is, yeah.
Feeding you glasses, yeah.
And I was like, well, I have an idea about what we could do to fix it, but no one's gonna jump on board. He's like, try me. It's probably like, I don't know, midnight at this point. Which is way too late for me, to be honest. So we just started talking about the challenges the industry has. And I said, what would be fantastic is if we could create a community. And I had other conversations with other guys, Matt Annis, Rob McCutcheon, a bunch of other guys at this point at the same conference saying, hey, what would be awesome is if we could get a community of people together from all across the industry, brokers, carriers, factors, technology companies, everybody, and just have the damn conversation, right? Just put everything out there. Everybody has stuff that they have to own in this industry, and let's just bring everybody together and have the conversation. Teach each other about the other sides in the industry. Teach carriers what brokers actually have to go through. Teach brokers what carriers have to put up with them and with other people, with dock workers, all the things. And maybe out of that, we can all enjoy being in freight just a little more. And he said, well, that is an absolutely insane idea. But he also said, if I ever tried to do anything like that, to call him. And here we are.
So this originated in April of 2021. Then I think it was that, or was it 2022?
Yeah, it was April of 21.
21. Okay, so you had this idea for a while. But then you didn't really move on it until early 2023, January, December, somewhere.
No, sorry, April of 22. April of 22. Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because 21 we were still locked down in our homes. Yeah,
that's right. So basically, you had this idea April 2022. A year later, you had the first one. So you started meddling with this idea in the fall. Started getting serious in January. Started sending out a couple emails, I think, in February, just to see if anybody would show up. And it was 73 attendees. I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, I took my family on vacation. We usually go somewhere in January when the kids are out of school. So we were on our way down to Florida. We have to go see the mouse. And so we were on our way to Disney, and I was driving, and my wife was in the passenger seat. And I said, hey, I have an idea. Would you mind taking some notes for me while I drive? And she said, sure. And I started talking about, at the time I was calling it the Broker Carrier Alliance meeting or whatever. I forget what it was called exactly.
Yeah.
But I was saying, hey, brokers and carriers together. Here's what the workshop should be. Here's what the flow should be. Here's who I want to speak at it. Here's how many attendees we should have. If it gets traction, this is what we should spend. She's like, what are you talking about? And I was, because this is not freight brokerage. And I was running linkage at the time because this isn't freight brokerage. What is this? And I said, I don't know what this is. Initially, it was a one-day symposium of brokers and carriers coming together to learn about why the other side is upset with each other, why they're upset with each other. And so all the topics were revolving around best practices and why do brokers vet carriers the way they do? Why do carriers think this way about brokers? And we had just some ideas we threw around. So that was it was born in a pub in a whiskey house, and the initial notes were on the napkin of my iPhone notes on the way to Florida.
Nice. I love hearing that. When you talk about let's get these brokers and carriers together and like air their grievances, it just reminds me of Festivus from Seinfeld, like a massive Festivus conference of brokers and carriers to come and air their grievances.
We should have a Festivus pole in the middle of the ball. That's it. You know what? That's a fantastic idea.
That's a new idea. Yeah, we need to have that.
Hey, Coleman, you're listening. Write that down. Write it down. Giant Festivus pole.
I love it. I love the idea. So it's great. So you had 73 show up in Indy, and I feel like we have to share this story. There was a small enough crowd that you felt like you could do some introductions. People could meet each other. And the first person that stood up to introduce himself said what?
Yeah. So we had 75 people, 35 in the room, an additional 35 online, which wasn't great. We'll talk about it later. Actually, let's not talk about it later.
Yeah, let's just not talk about it.
Just leave that one alone. So 35 people in the room, and I was like, you know what? I've never done one of these before, so I'm going to do what I think we should do. Let's everybody introduce each other or themselves to each other. And so we went around the room, said, hey, just tell us what your name is, who you're with, why are you here? Simple questions. And one of the concerns was that if you get brokers and carriers in the room, that some violence will break out, right?
Potentially.
That was one of the concerns. And the first guy that stands up is a big trucker. And he stands up and he says, hey, he tells me his name. He's from the East Coast. And I said, good to meet you. Why are you here? And he said, I'm here because I hate brokers. And I tell you,
right out of the gate.
The funniest part was at that exact moment, somebody from the hotel staff jostled the door from outside the room. And I quickly, like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I went in like full like defensive mode, looking around, trying to like, who's going to come out in the back here? But no, but the next thing he said was one of the best things I've ever heard at an event. And it actually set up why we had another one. He said, I hate brokers, but I've never met one. And I'm here to meet them. And one of the questions that we had when we debriefed after the first event was, how many other carriers can say the exact same thing as that guy? And the consensus was most of them.
Yeah,
and
I would believe that.
Yeah. And I said, well, that's the problem. That's
I think
part
it
of
goes
the
the other way too. I would imagine
100%.
Brokers haven't met carriers, haven't been to a truck stop, haven't been in a cab. I imagine that it's probably 95% of brokers haven't really met and spent time with carriers.
Yeah, well, I was a broker for 9 years. I never, especially when I was with a larger brokerage, I never was able to get a trip approved to go see a carrier.
Right.
I was able to go see them when I ran the freight for an event that one of my customers was going to. And so I went to go see my customer and I spent time on the dock. I was able to do that. But that was the only time in brokerage where I was able to actually go meet my customers and the company actually be behind me. So that's a huge glaring problem.
Yeah. And I think that's probably common for brokers too, that they're not going to meet their carriers. The carriers never come to their location. They're going to the customer location. They're not going to meet the broker in person. So you just have this kind of virtual wall that exists between brokers and carriers. And we're working to break that down. So you had 73, the first one in Indy. Then we go to Tampa. We decided to do it again. Went to Tampa, which is not a good place for trucks to get in and out.
Not a great place for trucks.
Yeah, we may not be going back to Tampa. It was great.
No, we'll go to Florida again, but not Tampa, not anytime soon. So one of the requests, we at the end of the Indy Summit, the first one, we asked people 2 questions. 1, did you get value? 2, would you do it again? Every hand went up when we asked, did you get value? And every hand went up when we asked if they would do it again. The one request was do it somewhere sunny. And I was like, okay, well, sunny equals Florida or California. California is too expensive. And when you look at Florida, Orlando is too expensive. Because we didn't know what we had yet. We didn't know that this was going to just absolutely just go bananas. We were still just a one-day symposium that was kind of, still trying to figure out whether or not there was value in it for everybody. So it's okay. We'll do Tampa, Florida. And we had 226 people in Tampa, Florida. And it went from a 1-day event to a 2-day event. And it went from one general session, if you will, to with 4 conversational topics, to 3 or 4 general sessions with a round robin style breakout setup of 4 different breakout sessions. And that I think was the moment we looked around the room. I think you were there too, and we said there's definitely something here. There's a lot of people in the industry who want and need and have been looking for this. In fact, one of the people came up to me afterwards and he said, I've been waiting for 20 years for someone to put something like this together. And so he's been back to every single one since.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that was my first one, was Tampa. And I remember I got to do a breakout with Kevin Hill, the great Kevin Hill, over at Brush Pass Research. And we had kind of like an agenda we were going to talk about. And then we realized pretty quickly that the conversation was more important than presentation. So we turned and we just asked the crowd. There's probably, I would say, in that room, there's probably 70 people in that breakout session that we were in. And we just started opening up the floor and said, hey, what issues are you guys dealing with? You know, carriers here, tell me what issues you're dealing with, and brokers. And the room opened up and you started hearing these carriers, you know, talk about not having enough information, or brokers not answering the phone after 6 p.m. and just all these different problems that they had. And there were brokers in the room who were like, I'll answer the phone after 6 p.m. Who are you working with? And the carrier's like, you would? And you started to see this synergy, you know, start to happen between the brokers and the carriers in a way that I've never seen before. I've never seen that type of, you know, that interaction, and being honest about the problems, but also being honest about, hey, there are solutions here you just don't know about. There are brokers that will treat you right. There are carriers that will answer the phone and give you a proper update and be honest about why they're late. You know, things happen on the road, you know, those types of things. And so I saw it firsthand. I couldn't believe it. Kevin and I kind of looked at each other like, this is amazing. Like, they don't even need us anymore. We're out of here. Like we're just watching at this point, watching all these things happen, these conversations that were so rich. And I think that's been the best part about this, both at Tampa and then back in April at Kansas City, was seeing these authentic conversations where people feel comfortable to talk about the problems that they have, but in an environment where everybody wants to find a solution. I think that's pretty unique. You know, I don't know that that's very common.
And I think it's important to understand, and I want to say this very specifically: the Broker Carrier Summit, in and of itself, is not the solution. The Broker Carrier Summit is the facilitator of the solution. All we do is connect and bring resources to the table. The solution is actually the freight brokers and the trucking companies sitting down together and doing good business. That's the solution. And so we provide the solution as a facilitator. And I think that's one of the reasons why people enjoy it. I mean, we're not getting up on stage saying, "Hey, we have the greatest, you know, thing since sliced bread, and we're going to solve all your problems." No, but that guy might, because he has 55 loads a day out of Phoenix, Arizona, in the dry market. So that's what we do.
All right, cool. So let's talk about sales, marketing, leadership in regards to the Broker Carrier Summit. We got the next one coming up in October next month. Can't believe it's coming up quick, down in Fort Worth, which is awesome. And something that I've noticed, Dan, is, you know, it's one thing to have an idea, and it's one thing to start executing on that idea, which you've done. You're definitely a visionary when it comes to that, in my opinion. But something that you've done incredibly well that I'm impressed about are the people that you have coerced, manipulated, encouraged, sold, persuaded. I don't know what word you want to use, but the people, whatever. But the people that you have been able to coalesce around this idea, some phenomenal people in the industry. I mean, you know, you got Don Salvucci Favier who's on the board. I think it's Favier. I think I always say her name wrong. I'm sorry, Don. My fault.
I'm just going to start saying it with. I'm just going to say it with a French accent. It's
Favier. I feel like I got to throw it out with a French accent, Favier, but it's Favier. Anyways, you have Don. You've got obviously Robert Bain, which talked about. Adam Wingfield, who's phenomenal. Melanie Patterson's been a part of this. The crew over at Taft's and some of the guys, you know, JJ and Matt at Trio. Just so many different people, and even competitors who have said, "I'm all in on this. How can I help? How can I do this?" You know, Nate Johnson at GLCS, and just several other people that we've talked to that are like, "How can I help? How can I help?" And to me, that speaks volumes to two things. I would imagine. I want to hear your take on this. Is it because the idea is just a good idea? Or is it, you know, what have you done specifically to get people to coalesce around this idea? Like, what are the tricks of the trade? What, besides the cash under the table, what else are you doing?
Yeah, well, if there's cash under the table, 1 second. I'm gonna go find it. No, I think so. You can, if you're privileged to be in sales, and I use that word very, very loosely. If you're privileged to be in sales, you can sell your ideas, or your ideas can sell itself. And I think in many ways, the idea of the Broker Carrier Summit sells itself. And the reason for that has nothing to do with me and nothing to do with the Broker Carrier Summit. It has everything to do with post 1980 deregulated trucking, right? So when freight brokers and trucking companies really started butting heads and the divide started, and the misunderstandings and the mudslinging started happening, that's the backdrop into which the summit has been dropped. So I think the idea sells itself, especially to people who've been in that environment for longer than a few years, and like, you know what, I want to actually be in an industry that I enjoy. I want to go to work every day and not be pissed at myself that I'm going to work, or not already be wanting to go home while I'm on the freeway because I have 15 drivers and 3 shippers calling me. So I think if the idea has to sell itself. If you have to sell your idea or your product harder than the customer or prospect wants it, it's going to be an uphill battle for you.
Yep. I agree with that. You know, it's interesting. Some people will talk about the talent or quality of a salesperson, and they'll use this phrase, which I hate. They'll use this phrase, which is, "Man, you're so good, you could sell ice to an Eskimo." Okay, that's fine. Eskimos don't need ice. They need a jacket. They need other things, right? And I think the idea and the product or the service, whatever you want to call it, has to be good to start with. That's the number one thing. If you have a good idea, a good product, a good service, that's the beginning, I think, of great sales, because it'll sell itself, like you said. I think one of the things that we've benefited from so much in people hearing about it is so many people are talking about it because it was good. So many people are sharing it authentically because of the value that they got from it. And to me, that's the best marketing that you can have. We do social media, we do email outreach, we do some networking events where we get, close by, we go on podcasts, we do all the stuff. But I feel like what I'm hearing, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, I'm hearing people say, I heard so-and-so talk about this. I heard people say, I have to come to this. I heard people say, and that's really powerful. Have you experienced the same thing?
Absolutely. In fact, I've taken 4 or 5 calls just this week from people who have said, "Hey, I heard about your summit. I want to know more." Or, "Hey, I got an email from so-and-so saying they went to this in Kansas City. When is your next one?" And I think that word of mouth, people want to go and do the same things and experience the same things that their friends have done and experienced. And that's obviously the most powerful form of marketing.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Plus, I think too, again, the attitude that we bring to it, again, we're not coming at this with the Broker Carrier Summit is the solution to all your problems. And one of the byproducts of that is we don't what's the word? We don't dictate things like content or things like structure. We ask. So after every summit, you've seen this, you've been a part of this. After every event, we ask, among other questions, what did you not see that you want to see? Or what did you not learn that you wanted to learn? Or, hey, how did we do well? How did we do poorly? What did we work on? What would you come back if it was different? And so, again, we're not bringing something to the market that the market isn't already asking for. And we're making sure that every time we bring something new to, whether it's the Broker Carrier Summit as an event, whether it's as a website or a network or a podcast or whatever it might be, all of those are being brought to the table because people who have come to the event have asked for those things. So,
yeah. And I think a lot of companies don't do that in their sales and marketing efforts, which is they don't ask their customers for what's next. They don't ask for customers for their feedback of how they did or what they could use or where they could get benefits. I see companies that are doing really well who do a good job of this. They spend time with their customers, they ask those questions, they listen, then they build a technology or create a service based upon that. And I think that's really powerful. It's something that we do really well, which is awesome. And I want to pivot just for a second here, and then we're going to have a little fun, is I want to talk about leadership for a moment, because our board of directors, I feel like, is made up of a very diverse group of people with different backgrounds, different experiences, but all passionate about the same thing. What are your thoughts around like when you step back and think about this, how have you been able to assemble, again, a board that we have that's very passionate about this, but also very diverse and comes from different backgrounds, but also all the volunteers. We have people that volunteer their time to make this thing work with signage and other just things that we have, registration table. How have you been able to coalesce? And again, I'm going to go back to that from a leadership standpoint, all these people around this idea.
Yeah. I'm going to quote Braveheart.
Let's do it.
Gibson. Can I do that? And by the way, Braveheart, completely revisionist history. It's total crap. Not the way it happened, just so we're all on the same page. But in the movie, Mel Gibson, his character, William Wallace, is talking to Robert the Bruce. And he's talking to him about, the battle to come. And William Wallace says to Robert the Bruce, men don't follow men. Men follow courage. And when you talk about building a team around something, I don't see it as me building a team around me. I see it as building a team around the idea, around the challenge, the problem that we're trying to solve. And so people can be on the board, and I imagine there's people on our board that have the various opinions of who I am and my faults and my strengths and all that. But the idea, the central idea that we're trying to fix, or the problem that we're trying to fix, that's what they coalesce around. And so my job, largely as a leader, I learned this in the Marine Corps. My job is largely to get out of the freaking way and let people do what they want to do. And not only do we do that on the board, I'm not taking a backseat, but I kind of just take a observer role sometimes, just kind of sit and ask everybody what they think. But we do that as a company, as an event as well. Again, we're not the solution. We're merely the facilitator of that solution. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times, one of the most overlooked things in leadership is the value that you bring to your team by getting out of the way and letting your team do what they do and trusting them that they're going to be as expert as you have trained them to do. And that opens up a whole nother conversation about leadership is, are you doing the training? Are you doing the preparation? Are you empowering those people and enabling them to actually accomplish the mission? So,
yeah. And something that I would point out that I would just give you kudos on is I think you do a good job of, one, being vulnerable about just who you are. You're very self-aware about what you're good at and where you struggle, and just being vulnerable and honest about that. But then two, asking really good questions and having people work out the answers, like you said, kind of standing out of the way a little bit. And I think that's not common among leaders. It is common among great leaders, but it's not common among leaders. And so kudos to you on that. I think you're spot on. Part of our job as leaders is to put people in the right position to be their absolute best. And I often think of it like being a conductor of a symphony. The conductor doesn't get to play any instruments, but his job is to make sure that all the instruments and all the people playing the instruments are in the right position and doing the things at the right times, that all sounds beautiful. I mean, that's the whole job. And I think that, to me, that's a really good word picture of what leadership is. And I think too often leaders try to go around and play all the instruments. Yeah. And I think that's a detriment. It doesn't work. And so I think you've done a really good job with that. So kudos to you, my friend. That's enough compliments. We got to end that for right now. We got to move on for a second.
I was like, how much longer is this going to go? No.
We're done. We're done with that. We're moving on. We have to have a little fun on the show. We always do. So we always like to have a random question of the day. And again, this is the question. It could be a good question. It could be a dud. It could be funny. Could be serious. I don't know. Never seen it. Our producer gets to make it up. So let's see what it is. Today's random question of the day is, if you could live in a book, TV show, or movie, what would it be? So which one of those, and then what would it be? Oh, that's a good one. I got mine.
Yeah. Let's do you first while I think.
All right. You think. I'll share what mine is. So this is kind of stupid, but it's so true. So if I could live in a book, TV show, or movie, it'd be a movie, and it would be it's a trilogy, because I love trilogies. As a trilogy, it would be Troy Bolton of High School Musical. All right. Now let me tell you why. All right. I love to sing. I love to play basketball. I played in college, and I love to play golf. I played in college. He does all of those things. And I would, if I could trade places with anybody, it would actually be Zac Efron in life, because he was in that. He was in The Greatest Showman. He does this really cool travel series now where he goes around and does some stuff. Like, if I could switch places with anybody in life right now, it'd be Zac Efron. But if it was a movie, it's the High School Musical trilogy. Let's go.
Yeah. See, I think this is the question that whether or not
Coleman's embarrassed when I said that.
I think he's sitting back and he's like, you know what? This is a question that Trey asks himself every day. I should have picked a different question. Tell me that's not true. Like, you've asked yourself this question before.
Oh, dude, I've answered this question before in many ways. I've even told people, I said, if there's anybody I could switch places with, it'd be Zac Efron, because I'd love to be in a musical, and I'd love to sing, and I'd love to dance and play basketball and golf. Like, that's my life. I mean, look at this. This is who I am: music and golf and basketball. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. So
All right, what's yours?
For me, it would probably be the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah.
Tell me why.
Because I'm very often told that I'm way too serious in every single aspect of life, and this is not going to be an exception. So, spoiler alert. I think that in many ways, the stories that Tolkien writes embody the visceral challenges and the decisions that we need to make every day versus light versus darkness and good over evil. And I think it just pictures it in a very vivid way. And if there was ever a book or a story that I've read that exemplifies this and puts that really right in front of the characters in a very profound way, I think it's that.
Can I make a confession?
Yeah.
I've never read or watched any of the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, see, you're going to be in town this week. We're going to have
we're watching them all, baby. We're watching them all.
We're going to have a marathon. It's going to be like a 12-hour experience.
We're watching them all. Listen, I think there's a reason, and it's because when they came out, I had small children. I was watching Paw Patrol and just stuff like that. There's a season.
There's a lot of conflict in Paw Patrol. There's a lot of life lessons.
But there's a season of stuff that you just miss when you have small children if you're not intentional about it. And I was just not intentional about going to movies or watching adult movies. I just was like trying to sleep and trying to I transitioned my career at that time to sales, and I didn't do it. So at some point I know I got to go back and do it, but I just didn't.
See, for a while there in high school and college, I had a huge Vietnam War movie kick, but I would never put myself in that. I would never want to just jump into that.
Rarely turn out well for the people in the movie.
It's like my buddies that went to Iraq. It's like, hey, you want to go and relive Band of Brothers? No, I don't.
No,
really
it's
don't.
a fascinating movie to watch, but no, I'm good.
I did it once. Nah, done.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. All right. Well, hey, that's a good answer. I like your answer a lot better than mine, but it also goes to a little bit of our personalities. I mean, I think our answers are actually on brand for the most part. I think that's probably
so. You're bad. You're fun. You're fun and sporty. I'm super serious and boring. That's just the way it is.
I mean, I would not say that that's the way you are. I think I've seen the other side of you as well. That's not like that, but you do have a little bit of stoicism in terms of your personality. So I totally get that. Dan, listen, hey man, thanks for being on the show. Thank you for what you're doing for brokers and carriers and for letting us be a part of it. We're just so excited to be a part of that. Can't wait for this one down in Fort Worth. You have to come back and talk to us again after the event and recap that. But congratulations, man, because I know that you set aside Lincoln Logistics. You actually sold out of that. You exited out of that so you could be all in for this. I think there's a lot to be said about that. And just congratulations on all the success, my friend.
Appreciate that. Thanks for being along for the ride. Appreciate you a lot.
Dude, 100%. All right, everybody, come back every week for another episode of Standing Out just like this with great guests like Dan Lindsey. And also a shout out to our friends over at Sales-CRM, Josh Lyles. If you are needing a CRM that is fit to your business, make sure you check them out at sales-crm.com. Let them know that you heard about it right here on Standing Out. And until next time, my friends, don't forget, stop standing still, start standing out. We'll see you later.